Hi, do you know how many Scrum Masters does it take to change the light bulb? Well, just one. But the light bulb has to want to change. I know, that's an old joke. I'm sorry. But that joke is quite important to me, because once I told it in one company, and one of the managers had a completely different answer. He said something like that. Well, it doesn't matter how many Scrum Masters need to change the light bulb, because they cannot change anything anyway. Whoa, that hurts. But under that bitter statement, there was a serious issue. I was an agile coach at that time, and I thought that maybe this is an opportunity to learn something new about how the people perceive the value of Scrum Masters' work. Around that time, I got some new Scrum Masters under my wings to train them, to coach them, to mentor them in a ways of being a Scrum Master. And I still got that bitter answer to the joke at the back of my head. Can Scrum Master really bring value? Can they change anything in their company? How to make it possible? How I, as an agile coach, can help them to achieve that state, the state of being able to actually change things? And for me, that was a moment when I started to seek some frameworks or methods to organize the body of knowledge, which means what, as a Scrum Master, I should know about Scrum, teamwork, maybe some team dynamics, about the organization, about different processes. Should I be a skillful facilitator? Should I be a skillful teacher, trainer? What else should I know as a Scrum Master? I seek that knowledge so I can organize what I know, what I do not know, what I do not know that I do not know, in order to train them better, to coach them better. Obviously, as an agile coach and as an every human being, I have my own biases. I have my own flaws. So I was looking for a sort of a structure or a mental model that will help me organize those things and help me also address different stances, different views, different areas of knowledge, to help me have some spine to which I can add new techniques, new methods, new tools, and combine them in some sort of a, let's use that word, body of knowledge of a Scrum Master. What the Scrum Masters should know in order to be good Scrum Masters, in order to actually bring value with their work. I thought that that spine should be flexible enough so I can expand it with new methods and tools, and at the same time strict enough to give me that structure that I won't omit something important, something that I do not know that I do not know. During my looking for the structure, my first thought was, okay, so maybe let's have a look at some certificates, for example, Scrum.org or some other certificates that are on the market, because there are certain bodies of knowledge. People are passing those certificates or passing those exams so they can gather some actual knowledge, and they are taught by professionals. And that's how I ended up at the Scrum.org Learning Path, a very useful tool for all the Scrum Masters and agile coaches. And it was a complete Scrum course for free, made from different articles and videos and presentations that are on the Scrum.org. And I thought, okay, that's a nice start. It's a lot of knowledge about Scrum itself. Maybe there's not enough knowledge about what I can do as a Scrum Master in different difficult situations, but it's a good start. So the Scrum.org Learning Path was a great start, but I thought, okay, I need something extra. I need some additional structure on that. And that was the time when I reread a great book by Lisa Atkins, Coaching Agile Teams. It's a great book. It's a very good book for the coaches. But I thought at that time that maybe it's too complicated for the newbies. So for the fresh Scrum Masters, it's a good book, but for another time. So I borrowed some tips and tricks from that book, but I still thought, okay, it's very extra. So maybe I should seek for some other structures or some other models. And Ewa Koprowska approached me with a book by Jeff Watts. The title of that book is Scrum Mastery. And I read that book. I remember that it took me a day or two, something like that. And that clicked instantly. Because in that book, there was a complete mental model for training the Scrum Masters, for helping them be a better Scrum Masters, becoming a better Scrum Master by myself. And that model was called Retrained. Okay, so Retrained is an acronym made of resourceful, enabling, tactful, respected, alternative, inspiring, nurturing, empathic, and disruptive. There are 9 skills or 9 areas that the good Scrum Master should know about, should train, should improve his or her skills in those areas in order to be a great Scrum Master. And that acronym, as I said previously, it constantly clicked for me because that acronym was a spine. That spine that I was looking for. Strict enough to help organize different skills and techniques, but also flexible enough so for from different points of view or for different companies, I can utilize different approaches within those domains. And that made me extremely happy that I read that book. Thanks, Eva, for bringing this book, because it was a start of a completely new way of mentoring Scrum Masters. And when doing a sort of a dry run for a set of trainings and coaching sessions, I had quite a discovery. And that discovery is about, okay, when you are using this model, you can treat every letter as a different module. And it doesn't actually, it is not actually needed that you have to follow the order. So for the people who want to be better in being tactful, you can use the model of tactfulness. For the people who are trying to be more empathic, then you have a different module on empathy, and there is no need to strictly follow the order. That's where there is that flexibility. But also, if you're starting with the people from the very basic level, the people who, for example, pass their professional Scrum Master certification and they are looking for some ways to expand their toolbox, that order of retrained model seemed very logical, and I also went with that. And I want to share some of my thoughts and insights when and how this model can be useful when you are training new Scrum Masters, or you already are a Scrum Master and you want to be not mediocre, not good, but really a great Scrum Master. Speaking about resourcefulness, great Scrum Masters are resourceful, but what does it mean? Do they have enough chairs and screens? Obviously not. It means that the Scrum Masters have the resources to help the teams remove the impediments. It doesn't mean that the Scrum Master is automatically the impediment remover, the solely impediment remover, but rather I perceive him or her as a person who uses his or her knowledge to help the team remove the impediments so they can learn how to remove those impediments, how to challenge the problems. And by that, I understand that the great Scrum Master is a person who knows other important persons in the company, other important people within your department or in other departments, or have a good relationship with, for for example, administrators or something like that. So when the team has a problem, has some sort of impediment, the Scrum Master is the person who can guide them or navigate them. Hey, go to the XYZ department, there's my colleague John, and he might be able to help you. Or I know Laureen from HR department, she might be able to answer your questions. Something like that. This is how the resourceful Scrum Master is helping the team by having good relationships with many different people within the company, and constantly sharing that knowledge, nurturing that relationships, and by that he's creating a sort of a friendly environment for the team. The environment when they can seek help and they can go for some advices to the people they already know, and they maintain a cordial relationship. So the Scrum Master is a person, his or she is a sort of an ambassador who is taking care of those good relations, is taking care of understanding of different parties, is creating that space where different parties can go and talk and know each other better. And because of that, when they have some problems, they know the people who can help handle this. So that was the resourcefulness of a great Scrum Master. How we as the coaches can help our Scrum Masters achieve that level of resourcefulness? Well, in Jeff's book, there was a great advice, a very nice technique called battle mapping. And it's a sort of mind mapping of all the people who you know as a Scrum Master and what is their relation to a certain issue. It's called battle map because you are trying to address who might be your friend or ally, who might be your active enemies, the person who has some completely different goals and might act different than you expect or might not help you to achieve your goals. Who is neutral, so he's neither going to help you or prevent you to reach your goal. So you're using this technique to be prepared as a Scrum Master. To whom you are talking to, which language you're using when you are talking to those people, what might be the possible impacts of their actions on your goal, on your team, on your impediments. So that this was a useful technique that I started to teach the Scrum Masters. And I started to use it myself when I'm preparing for difficult talks within the companies. Also, we had this experience that this resourcefulness module is also a nice part to refresh Scrum Masters' knowledge on Scrum. And obviously I know that many Scrum Masters are passing some certifications, they are testing their knowledge, but still there's a lot of misunderstandings maybe, or some different views on certain topics. So it's good to have somebody who is more experienced, somebody with whom you can talk through Scrum, you can ask different questions, and building that knowledge on Scrum is also creating the Scrum Masters to really achieve that mastery part in their role. So when I think about the resourceful Scrum Master, when I want my Scrum Masters to be resourceful, for me personally it means that first of all they are able to help their teams because they know many different people, and from the other hand they have the knowledge, so they have a plenty of knowledge about the framework that their teams are using, and they can explain it on a higher level than just, well, Scrum Guide says that or something like this. So they have this resource of knowledge about Scrum. The great Scrum Masters are also the enablers, so they are passionate about helping others. How can you achieve that passion? I think that sometimes you have to be born with it, but you can also learn that passion. I think that you can learn to be passionate about something, especially when you feel responsible for this. And this is also a way how I am teaching the Scrum Masters to feel that enabling part of the model, because Scrum Masters are the enablers for the self-organization of the team. And I'm fully aware that many companies are afraid of this word self-organization because they associate that with chaos, anarchy, perhaps. So everybody is doing whatever they want. That's not the self-organization. Self-organization is the ability of the team to manage itself in order to reach the certain goal or goals. And when we are using Scrum, those goals are pretty clear. The business goals and the product backlog should be our North Stars for what we are trying to achieve and why we are doing this. And the team needs the self-organization, needs that ability to manage itself in order to fulfill the how part. How are we going to meet those goals? How are we going to build the product? The team needs the Scrum Master. First of all, to set some boundaries, to discuss those boundaries, to discuss the rules within this self-organization is possible. And secondly, the Scrum Master, the enabling Scrum Master, has to be somebody who is the guardian of those rules, who is the person who is not going to do any shortcuts, but is really guarding the rules and the processes. And when I am coaching the Scrum Masters to be the enablers, we are following a sort of a structure. And in that structure, we are trying to discuss what are the rules of the team, how those rules are changing in time, and what different approaches the Scrum Master can make in order to put the team or help the team go to another level of self-organization. So this is the discussion about how much power is delegated from the company to the team. A great Scrum Master is somebody who is starting that discussion, is facilitating a discussion about delegating of power, and is helping both the team and the company to establish a fruitful relationship, a healthy relationship of this cooperation. For those of you who are wondering why there are so many cats in this video, I have a domesticated ferret, and he's making a lot of noise when I'm trying to record that video, so excuse us. Back on track. Scrum Masters have to tell the truth, and sometimes it's very difficult, and there are consequences. I know that very good because I already faced that kind of consequences many times in my career as a Scrum Master and an Agile coach, but it was worth it. Because if the Scrum Master has no courage to tell the truth, who else might have it in a company? The Scrum Master have to be the champions of what is true, what is transparent within the organization. But they have to do this in a tactful way. So tactfulness is also a huge part of the Retrained model. This is the part where we are exercising nonviolent communication or manipulation preventing techniques. So we are learning how we can talk to each other artfully and without insulting, how we can tell those ugly truths sometimes. And I think that the communication skill set is one of the most important assets that the Scrum Masters have. We are constantly learning how we can talk to different people, to different parties within an organization. It also connected to the resourcefulness module, because we know which language use in different situations, in different cases. So this is a valuable part of learning to be a better Scrum Master. Being a better Scrum Master means that you can communicate better in stressful situations, under pressure. One of the advantages of that part is also that you are increasing your skills that you can use not only in the work environment. Those are human skills. Talking to each other is a human skill. The great Scrum Masters have a reputation for integrity, which means they are respected. And by respected, I do not mean that the people like them, but it means that the people go to them when they have some problems. They are respecting their knowledge, they're respecting their experience or expertise, they are respecting their position, or more a role rather than a position, their role in the process. How can one be respected? Or how can one achieve or get respect? You cannot learn in theory. I think that the only way is to give an example of yourself. You're practicing what you're preaching. You're doing Scrum, you're living with its values, but it's not like it's not like a philosophical metaphor. But for example, you are teaching your team that being on time is extremely important because of time boxes, because that it builds the accountability of the team. It helps to show that they feel responsible, that you can count on them. If you, as a Scrum Master, you are always on time, and even if you're not making excuses, but you're just saying, yeah, okay, I'm very sorry, today I was late because I left my home later than usual, then that is the way how you build respect. You are telling the truth and you are accepting responsibility and you are setting the example of your own. I think that this is the best way, and this is what I'm trying to do as a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach. This is also what I'm trying to teach other Scrum Masters, that anytime you're interacting with your team or your product owner, you're setting the example for them. They might follow you, they may not. It's more up to them than up to you, but still you are conveying a certain vision of how we should work together, how we should respect each other. You're starting with yourself, that emanates to other people. Alternative means that you as a Scrum Master, you are ready to promote a counterculture. What does it mean? In some companies, they believe that the culture is the difference between the best and the worst behavior that occurs in that company. I believe that the culture is something that is always present, like a weather. Always there is some weather, and always there is some culture in a company. It might be good or bad, but the culture is always present. And the Scrum Masters have to be ready to create a counterculture, a culture of better, the culture of doing some new things, of doing things in a new way. How are we going to do this? First of all, you are showing what is possible. So you're seeking what can be done right now. Maybe right now only the small things are possible, small changes, little tweaks here and there. That's okay. That's where the great Scrum Master starts. They are trying to identify every possibility they can use in order to achieve a long-run goal of an agile company, of a company that understands the agility as a method to reach its business goals better than their competitors. Secondly, I think that the counterculture is sometimes a bit of rebellion, perhaps, but that rebellion is not the anarchy. That rebellion is proving that small experiments on the culture, on the tools, on the processes are possible and are a source of valuable learning. So showing those results of those experiments and also making those experiments safe enough to try, good enough to survive. This is the responsibility of a great Scrum Master, to help the teams learn, but also protect them from the more serious consequences of their searchings. Also, you have to be inspiring. If you as the Scrum Master do not believe in your team, in your product, in the Scrum itself, in the idea of the agility, then no one will follow you. No one will trust you that the change is possible. So I see the great Scrum Masters as the people who are continuously looking for new inspirations. They are seeking new knowledge, new techniques, they are Googling the new tools, they are Googling the new ideas, the exercises, and also I see them as a very positive people. So they are the people who are saying to each other, the change is possible, we can do this. But it's not, they are not over enthusiastic. or they're not crazy about some ideas. They are pragmatists, but because they have an experience with change, they saw it in different teams, in different domains, they are living proofs that the change is possible, and they are emanating that inspiration to other people, to the people who are surrounding them. And also I see the great Scrum Masters as the people who are able to say, I don't know, I do not know the answer. I will look for it, I will Google that, I will ask my colleagues or something like that. But inspiration is also a way of saying that you do not know some things and you will seek them, and that's okay. As a Scrum Master, you have to nurture your team. But by nurturing, I do not mean that you're a nanny to your team. They are grown people, they don't need a nanny. But nurturing means caring about the growth. One of the techniques that I recommend is that every Scrum Master have a sort of a personal file of their team. It might be a sort of a mind map, it might be some canvas, it really doesn't matter. But it's important to ask two questions. What is that person is seeking? What is his or her goal? And the second question is, what I as a Scrum Master can do to help them reaching that goal, at least doing the first step. Because we as a Scrum Masters, we are trying to grow the team, and that's true, but also we are helping the individuals to grow. And by that, we are strengthening the team. We are helping the people to acquire new skills, new knowledge, new experience. We should be, that's my perception, that we as a Scrum Masters, we should be the very first person that those people are reaching when they want to learn something. Hey, how can I learn something? How can I learn X? That should be a very common question towards a Scrum Master, at least in terms of agility, because I also think that the self-organized team is the team that is able to search for what they do not know, and Scrum Master is only there to help them see what they do not know that they do not know, these unknowns. But for those known unknowns, the team has to be able to learn it by themselves. They do not need the Scrum Master for that. But they do need the Scrum Master to widen their horizon of what is possible to be learned. From time to time, our team members need a pat on the back, or they need a shoulder to cry on. That sometimes happens too. And we as the Scrum Masters, we don't need to be psychologists to be decent human beings. So I think that as a Scrum Masters, we are also for our teams to help them deal with some emotions, to deal with what they feel, to deal with some consequences of what happened, good or bad. At the end of the day, we are just people, we are just humans. We have our emotions, we have our dreams and fears, and a good Scrum Master is also a person who helps to create a safe environment within the team, to share some things, to create a professional space when we can be ourselves. I think that this empathy and ability to understand the emotions, to read the room, the ability to be in somebody's shoes, this is an important skill of a Scrum Master. I'm exercising that with my Scrum Masters, doing a lot of scenes, trying to do a sort of a role play when we are testing real cases from the actual things that happened in my career. And there are some patterns to human behaviors that we are exercising, and that helps a lot. And anytime that I saw them having some difficulties with their teams, I'm asking them, okay, what do you think they feel? How do you feel? How can you help them feel better? This is a huge lesson of empathy, to try to understand the things from different perspectives, from the points of view of the people around you. And anytime when you as a Scrum Master, you're in a difficult situation, count to 3 and ask yourself, why is that person behaving like that? What are her goals? What does he or she is afraid of? That helps a lot. Finally, the great Scrum Masters are disruptive, which means they are not okay with the status quo. Obviously, it doesn't mean that they are fighting the entire company at the same time, but the great Scrum Master for me is a person who's always seeking for opportunity to improve something, constantly identifying those possibilities. And it's also a person that is showing that the new world is possible, that it is okay to not be content with what we already have in the company, that it can always be better. And the Scrum Master should be a person who is showing this wider picture for the teams, for the managers, for the product owners. And having that wider picture also should be in sync with the company, also should be constantly updated, but still should be transparent, should be visible to the teams. And I see the Scrum Masters as the people who are continuously reminding us that we can grow, we can be better, that what we have right now is not enough. Since I started using Retrained model to help the Scrum Masters grow, I get a lot of feedback. And the majority of that feedback is positive. So there are lots of pros of using that model. The first one is that it's very cohesive and coherent. So you can start with what you have and you can gradually, incrementally add new skills and tools to your Scrum Master toolkit. Secondly, this model is very flexible. Because it's just a model, you can, anytime you like, add some new techniques or methods or exercises to every part of it. The third pros is that you can switch the letters. So if you see the people who are good with some parts of the model and need some advice in the other, you as the coach, you're free to go. But what about the cons of the model? I think that, first of all, you need a lot of experience by your own. The second flaw that I found in that model is it requires a certain set of skills to start. For example, you have to be a Scrum Master, you have to have a team, you have to have some basic knowledge how the framework works. Without that, you cannot really start. So before you start training people with that model, you have to inject some knowledge or let them be trained before you get them be retrained. To sum up, I would recommend using Retrained model if you are growing the internal Scrum Masters in the company or you're a mentor or coach to somebody else. Retrained taught me a lot about being honest with myself, what I can teach, what I'm not yet ready to teach. It helped me a lot to organize what I know, what I have experienced, a lot of stories and use cases from the life of Agile Coach. And it really gave me a powerful tool to help my Scrum Masters see the progress on their way. Obviously, there is no end to that way. It's a constant learning, but with that model, with every letter, with every area, we can discuss, okay, are we going deeper or do we feel confident enough that we can go to the next letter? And I think that this very joyful and interesting way of becoming better and better Scrum Master every day is something that every Scrum Master should have experienced by him or herself. Thank you very much for having me on that conference, and I hope that the next time that you will think about, okay, how can we show the value of the Scrum Masters? How can we know how many of them we need to fix the light bulb? you will remember the retrained model, and you will use it as a guidance, as some sort of a lighthouse for how our good Scrum Masters can become great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation, Kuba. Very interesting one, especially as a follow-up to what Kate just talked about as well, in terms of the world of understanding of the role of the Scrum Master and Agile coach from different perspectives.
I was watching Kate's video with a great interest, and I was laughing a lot. that was laughing / crying a little bit, because I have encountered almost all those situations by myself. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I had exactly the same feeling. I was actually even writing it in the presentation, like during the presentation as well, because it was like I said, both entertaining and sad at the same time. So I'm curious, what's your cure to this situation? It seems like you came up with an idea of your own, how to train Scrum Masters from the ground up, if you will. So why not Scrum.org or Lisa Atkins and this what you propose instead?
Yeah, but because I started with those two. Well, Retrained, it's not my idea. It's obviously Jeff Watt's idea from his book, Scrum Mastery. But I try to apply that idea to what I am doing as an Agile coach, because mostly I am an external person hired by some companies to help them train their own Scrum Masters, mostly sometimes from the scratch, from the people who just started to be Scrum Masters. For example, that they passed their professional Scrum Master certification, something like that. And as I mentioned at my video, first of all, I started with Scrum.org learning path, and I still think that it is a great tool, because there's lots of materials to learn on your own pace. You see the progress of that. But when I did that path myself, then I thought, okay, it's very nice, but I'm lacking something. It's mostly about Scrum, but also I need some other areas. From the other hand, Liz Atkins' book was extremely great, but I was not trying to train them or to mentor them to become agile coaches. I just want them to be better Scrum Masters in the first step. So then I decided, okay, Liz Atkins it's great, but maybe I should have something in between the Scrum.org level and between Liz Atkins level. And that's when the book kicks in, and I like that method, because it really helped me organize all those aspects and areas, and it helped me to remember about what I have to be aware of when I'm mentoring different Scrum Masters. And also, it was very easy for me to check that, for example, okay, if they already are resourceful, for example, they have the resources, they have the knowledge, so there's no need for me to refresh it once again. They know that stuff. We can focus on different parts of the model. And I have a very warm feeling towards that model, and I really like it. And I tried it in different companies, trying to help the Scrum Masters grow, and it is successful. So I like that, and it is nice.
Great to hear that. I think there are many different approaches out there, and so there's probably not one good approach, but it's great when there are different approaches that are complementary to some extent, and some of them are maybe focused on just the toolkit or the tools, like the basics. Others
on the
are
mindset.
Kind of on the mindset, exactly. So different things. So I think that there is definitely that to consider when choosing the way to mentor let's say younger generation of Scrum Masters or beginning Scrum Masters that are coming in. I'm curious, because you mentioned Scrum Master and an Agile coach. I'm also curious. Kate said, her definition of that kind of role, and I'm curious, what is yours in this context? So the difference between Scrum Master and an Agile coach.
Personally, I do not really care about the names. So I can be Agile, whatever. if only my responsibilities and my role towards the team and the company and the different other different roles is clear and I'm adding value. So for me, there might be even no difference between being a Scrum Master or being an Agile coach. But going back to Lisa Atkins, I think that I can build on her definition that for me, Agile coach is a person who knows more than just a Scrum and had different experiences with many different frameworks, many different models, with scaling, with other tools and techniques, and is able to focus not only on one or several teams, but on the organization as a whole. I also think about that sometimes the difference is that the Scrum Masters are from the inside of the company and the coaches are hired externally as a sort of a temporary support. And this is often as I am hired as an agile coach, that I'm only coming for some time limited contract or time constrained contract to do some specific job, help those Scrum Masters grow, help them be responsible for what they are doing, and then I'm leaving, going to another assignment, and the major responsibility is on their shoulders. That's their company. So that's the difference that I see. I know that there are many different ways of explaining the differences between Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. I'm not really into any sort of differences, and I'm okay with any name that we can use, as long as it's clear for the people what are we doing, how we are adding value to the organization. That's yeah.
Thanks for this answer. I like also what you said a little bit earlier when we talked about this, when just before going live, when you mentioned that Scrum Master is focusing, essentially on Scrum, and Agile coach is also someone that would have usually a larger amount or like a larger toolkit, might be more proficient also at other frameworks or ways of working with the team. To kind of differentiate that role. So I would add to what you just said, this observation from our previous conversation.
But also I'm encouraging, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Also, I'm encouraging all the Scrum Masters to add different tools to the toolbox. And I think that scaling or Kanban are also very important techniques that Scrum Masters should know, even if they are not actually using them in their context of Scrum and one team, one product, etc., etc. But I think that to be a great Scrum Master, it is a time on your learning path that you have to extend that toolbox one way or another.
I agree, and I think as one matures, as Scrum Master mature in their like in their profession, really, this is the natural next step to kind of reach out, beyond the Scrum Guide and beyond, those I guess by now should be well known techniques connected to and related to Scrum, and kind of look for other opportunities to improve the process in which we work by kind of taking additional ways, additional tools, like say, for example, limiting work in progress in the columns, or essentially focusing on optimizing flow at the same time. So taking these additional techniques and improving your toolkit as a Scrum Master still. Okay, but the next question I wanted to ask is related to letters, as we've heard many of them in your presentation. So I'm curious if you have a favorite letter, or is there a best letter in your opinion, or the most most important one to master as a Scrum Master?
Personally, I do not have a favorite letter in that model, because I think that they're equally important. You either know them and you're a practitioner of that certain skill set that's associated with the letter, or you're diving deeper into that letter. But I don't think so that, for example, resourcefulness is more important than tactfulness or something like that. But I think that there might be meta letter. I don't know how to say that, but sort of a meta competency that is gluing this model together. And I would go with listening skill. That if you do not have a listening skill, so if you are a Scrum Master and you cannot listen carefully and without judgment and without, many people listen, trying to listen, but they are actually in their head figuring out how to answer. So what source of what kind of answer they can give you, and limiting that temptation.
Active listening, right? They're not
Very active
really actively listening. They're kind of already formulating the response to the question.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want to respond instead of they want to understand.
Mm-hmm. So I think that if you can master this, then you might be open to the retrained model. Without active listening and very deep listening skill, it might be very difficult for you to be a good Scrum Master. So I would say that to be a good Scrum Master, you have to actively listening and to be good with Scrum. And if you are going from being a good Scrum Master to being a great Scrum Master, then you can use the retrained model. And I think this is also Jeff Watts. It was his idea that you're coming from good to great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the retrained model helps to bridge that gap. But in order to be a good Scrum Master, there is Scrum Mastery, like knowing how the framework works, teaching it, facilitating, active listening. So there are many different skills that you have to master before you can use the retrained model. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks very much for this. I think this could be really helpful for some of the, well, not only the beginner Scrum Masters, as I understand, but also the ones that are kind of making the transition into more intermediate and advanced the direction of their professional career. But if you are a beginner Scrum Master, maybe someone who has not finished the PSM1 or has no certification, but has this idea of like, I want to be a Scrum Master, I want to work with the team in this role, I want to work a lot with people, I love to optimize processes, so I feel like this is a good role for me. Or maybe for ones that actually have completed the certification, the basic certification. Where to start? Where to start for them? What do you recommend? What kind of a route do you recommend for their development?
Obviously, different people will have different needs, but if you are talking about the models, so which are obviously some they are the simplifications of the reality. So that's why we call them models rather than reality. I think that I would still go with what I had on my video. So if you are a kind of fresh Scrum Master, you already have your certificate, or maybe you don't even have that certification, I would still start with Scrum.org learning path because it's free. It's extremely professional because all those materials are delivered by PSTs, professional Scrum trainers, so the people know their stuff. So this is a trusted source of knowledge. And I would go with that learning path because it shows the progress. There's lots of different materials that you can learn on your own pace. So anytime you have some free time, you can spend it on reading and watching those videos. It might be a refresher after exam. It might be a very nice preparation to exam. So if you are new, first of all, build up your knowledge muscle, I would say. Secondly, I think that I would go to a great white paper by Barry Overeem, 8 Stances of a Scrum Master, and I would read it carefully. It's not very short. It takes some time to really digest it, but I would ask myself, okay, so here are some stances that a good Scrum Master should present, should be living by. So what am I doing? What should I do? And I would maybe do some sort of a visualization or a board of those stances for myself, and then I would try to to think, okay, so what can I do to work more in that stances rather than in those anti-patterns that also Barry was showing in some presentations. So I would definitely read that white paper, and I think I would. I know that some people do not like to read books, but books are useful. And so I would definitely go with Kenneth Rubin's Scrum. I thought that was just the name of his book, or some other Ken Schwaber's and Jeff Sutherland's books about Scrum. I would definitely read Mike Cohn's blog and his books about planning and user stories applied, because they are great books for any Scrum Master that want to help his or her product owner. So this is also a skill that you have to build up. And as a third step, I would definitely seek for some group or meetup or Scrum Masters Guild in your company, when you can exchange your knowledge with different people. You can even learn together, and then everybody has a benefit from this. So this would be my 3 steps. So first of all, organize your knowledge, for example, using the learning path by Scrum.org, or any other organized way from a trustful resource. Secondly, I would just read some books that you just have to read them if you want to be a professional Scrum Master. And as a third step, I would recommend to look for some other people who are also doing the same things that you are doing, so you can exchange your knowledge both internally in your company and externally on some training or course or free meetup or something like this. So that would be my 3 recommendations, I think. At least that worked for me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it's easily repeatable, but well, inspect and adapt. Do
Exactly.
Try, measure, learn.
And share your experience by example, like you're doing it right now here with us at Agile by Example this year. Thank you very much, Kuba.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure
to have you here. Sorry, please finish your...
No, I'm completely all right. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed this conversation immensely. Thank you for participating in ABA this year.